Hello, I'm Radovan Hrabcak, and I'd like to walk you through the basics of creating microapps, integrations, and microapps themselves. Before we start, an important announcement of the release and timing of any feature and functionality described for our products remain at our sole discretion and is subject to change without a notice or consultation. Before we start and get our hands dirty, let me walk you through a little bit of a theory and let's have a look at a key component that you will need to touch through your journey. And let's talk a little bit about the basic principles of how the data flow there and back of the microapps platform. Okay, so let's start. So let's talk a little bit about a key component. This is like very high level kind of architectural picture. I'm not an architect, so bear with me. System of record is actually very important component, and that you will need or you want to integrate. And some of those are modern cloud-based systems. Some of those are legacy on-prem applications that most of large enterprises have running. And to connect to those systems of record, we have integration component here, and integration component connects the system of record with microapps platform. And it can pull the data out or provide a webhook listener to listen and process events from those systems. Nevertheless, it enables to write data back to the system of record if needed. And as we pull or listen to the events from systems of records, we need to temporarily cache the data. I'll talk a little bit more about this or about the reasons why when I will be talking about the event engine as it is essential for it. Microapps Builder is our low-code developer tool that allows you to build or customize microapp. And what is the microapp I keep talking about? So let's have a look at it. Well, as you probably already know, we're trying to help employees with improving their productivity by providing the single-stop shop for everything they need in their work life. And part of that is a set of very targeted microflows or microapps, if you want, which you can imagine as a task-specific application that deliver highly targeted functionality. For example, request PTO microapp or approve PTO microapp, or request a new corporate device microapp. The beauty of that is that the end user does not need to know which system he or she interacts with in the end. And they look very similar and help to limit context switching, disruption, or any other productivity killers. So you don't need to, or employees don't need to interact with multiple systems to do what they need, but they can concentrate on doing their daily stuff or tasks in the workspace with microapps. And it consists of two main parts, pages or forms, and events definitions, which you can imagine as a set of business rules that once they are met will trigger notification event and generate notification card for the end user. Now the event engine I was already mentioning. Well, not all the systems you need to integrate with and interact with provide modern concepts, as for example webhooks and push events. Event engine helps here. Event engine is a service that is running behind the scenes and helps to identify changes in the data so that we can identify new, updated, or deleted records in those systems and notify the end users based on that. And finally, there is an end user experience or workspace UI, if you wish, that is available in a web browser or native Windows or macOS app or mobile app for Android or iOS. And it allows to consume or to interact with the microapps, to use the microapps, and through the microapps to interact with the systems of record. Okay, now let's have a look, a more detailed look on the integrations. And I want to specifically talk a little bit about the HTTP integration, which is slightly different. And we provide a set of out-of-the-box integrations that you can easily configure and connect to the system of record. But apart from that, we provide a generic flavor of the integration that is a little bit special. And it's special because it's generic and it allows you to configure it in a way that you can integrate the system by your own or create the integration by your own. And how you can do that? You can do that by configuring the API calls to pull out the data from those systems APIs or propagate the changes back to the systems of record that or through the APIs they expose. Or you can configure the webhook listeners to process events pushed from those systems of records. It speaks REST and even more complicated REST. It supports chained API calls, so you can use the payload from first API call or part of this payload as a parameter for subsequent calls and pull the other records from those systems. It supports other cool and necessary stuff like multiple auth methods, pagination, or incremental synchronization. It can process not only simple JSON, but also nested JSONs, as well as OData JSON responses. Now, let's have a quick look at how the data flow through those components that we talked about from a very high level perspective before we get our hands dirty. So initially, we need to pull out the data from the system of record, or we need to listen and process the events that those systems send us with the integration component. The integration component stores those data into the data cache temporarily. Those cache data are then being exposed through the microapp pages or changes those data trigger the events, and we provide the notification cards to the end user through the Workspace app. End user finally can interact with the pages or the notification cards available to him or her and eventually create new records in those systems of record or update or delete those records. Change of a record you can imagine as, for example, the end user approves a PTO and that PTO approval is being propagated back through the integration component to the system of record. I believe that that was enough of a theory. So now let's get our hands dirty a little bit. What I want to show you is building a simple integration to the PagerDuty system that is basically incident response platform. And we'll create an integration to it, as well as a microapp that will enable the employees to report problems with the systems they interact with back to the PagerDuty. Okay, now as I said, let's get our hands dirty and let's create a PagerDuty integration and a simple microapps that will enable users to file the incident and see the incident reported into PagerDuty back. So as a first step, before we start with adding the integration, what I recommend you to do is to go through the developers documentation or API documentation of a system of record that you're planning to integrate with. It's a very important step to understand what the system or what the integration of the system requires and authentication methods that are supported there and stuff of that nature. I did a job before this demo. So I went through the documentation, I prepared my PagerDuty instance, I created a service, a team for this demo. So as you can see, there is stuff prepared there. I also enabled my API integration. So there is an API access enabled here. I have my API token generated. So as you can see, this is important pre-building steps that you need to take before you start. So we're all set here. Now let's start with building the integration. So I hit this edit integration button. And as you remember, when I was talking about the HTTP integration during my presentation, it's a generic type of integration that enables to create integration to specific systems by connecting to their APIs. So I will click this continue button to start adding HTTP integration. So let's give the integration some nice name. Let's call it PagerDuty. And from the API documentation, I know that my base URL is this. Let's choose some nice icon here. I can upload my custom icon if needed. As you can see, there are some icons pre-uploaded for the systems that we provide out of the box, or for the integrations to the systems that we provide out of the box. So I will just pick some random nice icon from there. So I choose this nice silhouette of person, set the icon, and there we go. Now, what I need to do is as I mentioned, understand the authentication methods that are supported by the systems or by the system that I'm trying to integrate it. So PagerDuty in my case, and I know that API keys is preferred way of authentication. So I choose my API keys here, and we'll be sending authentication header, and there is a prefix there that I need to put in. It's called token. And let me paste my token there. So here is the token. It's invisible, obviously, and we're all good here. So let me click add. Now, as the next step, what we need to do is configure data loading. There are two supporting mechanisms for the data loading. One is one supports pulling out the data from the system of record and caching them. The other one is the webhook, or configuring the webhook listener and configuring the webhooks in this case in PagerDuty, and PagerDuty would be sending the events to microapps platform, and we would be consuming them. The good use case for that would be, for example, if we want to notify the engineers on duty about the new incidents that they need to look at, and we don't want to wait for regular synchronization to be triggered, but we would rather notify them real time or close to real time. So this is where the webhooks using the webhooks is really good for. So let me add the data endpoint. What we want to do is we want to enable users to file the incidents, and also to preview the incidents that are filed into in a PagerDuty system. So we need to synchronize the incidents that are available or stored in the PagerDuty. So let me create a data loading endpoint name. Let's call it incidents. And the endpoint URI, again, I know from the documentation, is called incidents again. Now I can set a set of parameters if needed. I can change the request method, but for this case it's get, and we don't need any parameters. And we can set a pagination. We can set incremental synchronization, but for sake of simplicity, I will avoid this. But nice feature here is testing the settings. So I can hit this button and test the service, and we see the response is 200 OK, which is good sign. So I can view the details, and in the details I can see the request that we sent to the PagerDuty, and then the response from the PagerDuty. I can go through this response and to to understand if it contains everything that I need and or that I want to display for my users. And yes, it requires some basic understanding of the JSON structure. Now, in the next step, I want to generate tables that will exist cache data temporarily. So I click this Generate Tables button, and there are two options here. I can copy and paste the JSON from, let's say, API documentation or some examples from the system documentation, or I can fetch or based on the API call. So I hit this fetch button. We see the response here. It's 200 OK, which is good again. And I have my base table name preset, which is basically derived from the data loading endpoint name. And from understanding the JSON or reading the JSON structure, I know that my root path is incident. So I need to start with that. So I put incident here and I click Generate Tables. Okay, as you can see, there are 3 tables generated for me. One is incidents, and there is another one called incidents assignments, and the third one is incident themes. The reason for that is that the JSON structure is nested, and the platform creates data structures to basically accommodate to nested JSON structures. Now, for the incidents table, I don't have a primary key set for these auto-generated tables from basically parsed JSON response. We have primary keys auto-generated. So let me choose a primary key for the incidents table. Again, from playing with the Postman, from reading the PagerDuty API documentation, I know that ID is a unique field here, so that I can use it as a primary key. I click Save, and I click Add. Cool. We have our first data endpoint created here. Now, as the next step, I want to also see the assignees of those incidents. And again, I went through the documentation and I played with the system, so I know that I need to create a child call where I'll be using the incident IDs for pulling out the incident assignees from PagerDuty API. So clicking on the 3 does menu, I see here 3 options: edit, add, and delete. So I want to add child API call. And parent table for me is incident assignment, because in this table, there is an ID that I need for pulling out the assignees details. So the other, I need to give it name. So let's call it assignees. And again, from the documentation, I know that the endpoint URI is user/ID, where I will use the assignee ID as a parameter here for the child call. And I need to map it here, so I need to put ID as path parameter here, and I will basically, it will be column value from the table incident assignments, and the column is called assignee ID, and I can choose some default value here. Okay, and we can test the service again. So we have 200, which is okay. This is good, and we need to generate tables again. And we will fetch the response. And again, from reading the response, we know that the root path is called user. And what I can do here is I can configure a table merging, which will basically allow me to merge the tables and to prevent further relationships creation, right? So it will be, you can look at it from data warehousing standpoint, and basically as some kind of denormalization, which is very common pattern for the data warehousing. So I click generate tables again. I need to choose my primary key, so it's ID again. I know it's unique, and let me click add here, and there we go. We have our two data loading endpoints, so the master and the child created. So the reason why I didn't want to apply any tables merging is that I wanted to show you creation of the relationships. We need to create a relationship between two tables in order to display some incidents or incident information as well as the assignee information on the same page. So let me do that. So I hit this relationships, and as you can see, there are some relationships created already as part of nested JSON parsing and creation of the subsequent tables in a data model, in a cache data model. So let me add one relationship manually. So I'll click add relationship, and I need to create a relationship between primary and foreign table, between two tables. So one table, the first table is incident assignment, and the second is assignees. I will give it some alias so that I can understand what this relationship means. So I will call it incident assignees, and I will use assignee ID as a primary key and ID as a foreign key, and I click save. And now, as you can see, there is this relationship created for us. Now we can look at the tables. We can check that those tables contain some data. As we can see, the synchronization process was run behind the scenes for us. So we're all good here. And now it's time to create a service action. A service action will basically allow the end user, the user of the workspace UI, to submit an incident to the PagerDuty. So let's add a service action here, and let's give it some name. Let's call it create incident. And we need to add a couple of parameters. Again, I went through the PagerDuty documentation, developers documentation, so I understand what those parameters are. What is the request method that is necessary to be used here, and stuff of that nature. So we need actually 3 parameters. So let me add 2 more, and let's give them names. So first of one is called title, the other one is called details, and the third one is called user. And I want all those 3 to be required, and because they are required, and that basically means that I will need to configure my form in a way so that I will be checking if those parameters are filled in, and to prevent the unnecessary end user disappointment by submitting the half-filled form. So let's choose the request method, which is post in that case, and let's give endpoint URI name, which is called incidents. Now, the other thing I need to do is to set a couple of other parameters of that call. I need to set 2 header parameters. One is for setting the authorization. The other is for setting the user on which behalf we will be creating those incidents, as well as body. As you can see, it is also possible to set data update before action and data update after action. And those settings would help you to change the data in a data cache as part of a service action, and it will basically, or it's just for preventing displaying the user outdated data in microapp pages, because if, like once we change the data, we send some changes to the system of record, then we would need to wait for the synchronization to pull out and cache the fresh data. And those action or data update before action and data update after action help us to prevent those scenarios. So let me add two header parameters. First is called authorization, and it will be static value, and it will hold the token. So I need to copy and paste token again. So here's the token. And the other one is called from, and it will be static value again. Again, for sake of simplicity, I could use a more complex scenario for basically dynamically posting the session variable, but this would require some additional steps. This would require some changes to my Azure Active Directory. So for sake of simplicity, I will basically paste a hard-coded value here. Now I need to configure my body, and the content type of my body will be JSON. And I need to also add two more parameters. So first one will be called title, and the second will be called details. And both of them will be action parameters. One will be title, the other one will be details. And I've just seen here is the user, not users. Okay. And again, from reading the PagerDuty documentation from playing with some API client, I use Postman, I understand what my body JSON structure should look like. And as you can see, we'll be passing over a couple of parameters from the form to the JSON body. And we use a mustache tag for this, for title, for details, to be sent over. And as you can see, I have some hard-coded IDs here. Again, for sake of simplicity, I know what my service ID is or what my escalation policy ID is. Those are required parameters by PagerDuty. So let me hit add. And we have our service action created. So cool, we have our integration created, and that's most important or the key first step. So as the next step, we need to add microapps. So let's go there. Let's add microapps. So first microapp that we want to create will be, or will provide a form for submitting the incidents. So let's give it some nice name so that we know what is microapp is for. Let's call it create incident. Let's use it, or let's choose it some nice icon, for example, this one. And that's it. We will need to return back to this microapp to add a page that will serve as an action, but we're all set here. And now as the next step, we need to create a form that will serve for, or that we will use for submitting the incident into the PagerDuty. So let's add a page here. Let's choose a page type form, and let's call it create incident. And we'll create an empty form, and we will add 3 fields there. So one of which will be the date time. I can choose the default value, for example, today. And the second one will be title. So it's text input. Let's give it a name. And let's choose this required toggle. And when you remember, or if you remember, when I was configuring this service action, the title is required parameter. By clicking this toggle, until this field is filled in, I will, or the user will not be able to submit a form, and this will prevent submitting a half-filled form and getting the error response from the PagerDuty and disappoint the user. So this enables you to make the user experience a little bit nicer. Now we need another field for adding a description. So let's add this text area for a little bit longer text to be well edited. Let's give it a name, and let's choose it as required again. Okay. Now, last but not least, we need to add a button that will enable user to submit this form. So let's add a button, and we need to configure this button. So let's give it a name. Let's call it submit incident. And as part of the button setup, what we need to do is we need to choose an action that will be basically assigned or bound to this button. So let's go to the actions, and I have, or we need to choose what type of action we want to assign it to. So it's service action, and we need to choose the service action from the integration that we created, which is PagerDuty for us, and the action is called create incident. Now we're not done yet, because we need to basically assign the parameters from the form that we'll be sending as part of a form submission to the PagerDuty. So let's click edit parameters, and as you can see, there are parameters that are required to be sent as part of this form. So let's use this component value, and let's bind it to description. The title is component value again, the title, and I can use this, for example, user email. I'm showing this to you. So I would use this if I want to send or pass over the user as a session parameter from my identity provider. Again, for sake of simplicity, I hard-coded the user to the form, but you can pass over this parameter as part of a service action parameter. So I'll hit my save button, and we're still not done yet. One or two more things we need to do. We need to configure or we need to enable this microapp as an action, and we need to choose the action page, which is create incident. So I save it here, and one more thing we need to do is to subscribe this microapp to the user that will use the, or the groups of users. In our case, it will be a single user, and so the user can see and use this this microapp. Now let's go to subscriptions. And I will choose my user from my Azure Active Directory, which is this. and I subscribe this user to my microapp. Okay. Now let's cross the fingers and let's try it. So as you can see, this is my Citrix Workspace. I click the actions and I see my PagerDuty create incident microapp that we created. I click create incident. I give it a title. So let's call it and before I submit, let's check if we don't have this incident. As you can see, I have only 3 incidents open here. So let's submit. Oh, and cool, it worked as expected. That's great. Let me reload it, and we can see the incident created in a PagerDuty. Here is the details that I submitted. So it worked well. Cool. Okay, let me add another microapp as we want to. Sorry, here. As we want to display incidents and incidents details available in a PagerDuty or submitted to the PagerDuty. So let's call it incidents. Let's choose some nice icon again. For example, this one. And okay, let's add page here. So what we want to display first is the list of incidents in a table, and upon click on the incident, we will display the details of the incident. So let me add a page here, and it will be a table page. We will call it incidents, and we'll use this table. And we want to, let's keep this page name incidents here, and let's add a couple of more details. So let's give there a title. So we call it title, and okay, there we are. And one more, we'll call it assignee. Okay, and we will use, and now if you remember, we were creating the relationship between two tables, incidents and assignees. And now it's time to use it. So here is the relationship that we created. And in this, or from this relationship, we can choose the assignee here. So we want to create a page that will show the incidents submitted in PagerDuty, and upon clicking on this incident in a table, it will display its details. So let's start with the first page called incidents, and now we will use the relationship that we created. We named it incidents assignment, if you remember. And the reason being is that it will allow us to show or to display the values from two tables in a single page. So let me add it. And we have our table created here, so I will give it name. I will call it incidents. And this table will allow us to use related or use records related to the detail page. I will set it up later because we don't have a detail page yet. So let me add a columns here. So first column will be, let's call it incident title, and we will use column value, and it will come from table incidents. And let me choose a title here. Here we go. The other one will be basically assignee name that we want to display in a table. So let's choose table assignees here, and there is assignee name here. And you see, sorry, it's name, okay. So we're good here. We need to create another page, and the page will be basically, or will display the details. So let me add another page. I'll name it incident details, and just this. And on this page, we can display a couple of more information. So let me use flexible grid component, and I will add a couple of other components in this flexible grid. So for flexible grid, you can imagine as invisible table that will basically creates a structure and holds the component. So let me add first here. I will name it created at, and it will be created at, and let's give it date format, so it displays the time or the date when the incident was created. Now let me add, sorry, a status of this incident, or let me display the status of this incident, and it's here. And let me display the type of the incident. And we can display, let's say, we can add some more cells to the FlexGrid, and let's display the title of the incident here. Okay. It's here. So it's title, and I can add assignee email, for example. Oh, sorry. And I need to add title again because Okay, and there we go. Now we need to return back to incidence table and check if we are all good here. And we need to set the action for the table. So it will be go to page because we want to display the details, and we need to set a page, which will be incident details. And we're fine here. Now there are two more things that we need to do. We need to set a microapp as an action, and we need to choose which page will serve as an action or as a first page. So it will be incident, because this page will display the list of incidents in a table, and by clicking on them, it will bring us to the details. So I click Save button, and the other thing we need to do is we need to subscribe the user to the microapp so that he can use it. So let me do it. Okay, there we go. So it's subscribed, and in the workspace, as you can see, we have actions here, and I can click the incidents. And here is the table with a list of incidents, and basically I can click view details, and it will bring me to the details page that we created. Of course, we could go beyond that. We could configure the notification events that would notify the, for example, um, the user that submitted the incident about the incident resolution, as well as we could notify the engineers on duty about the new incidents that are created or assigned to them. And basically, the number of use cases is endless. So that's it for today. Hopefully, you will enjoy building new integrations and micro apps, and you will be able to build something cool. Thanks a lot.